Hey guys, this is Shane and welcome to my Curator of the Lost channel. Today, we want to talk about a reselling concept or philosophy or just thought experiment that we're going to call value density. And another couple of ways I would express this concept would be selling or reselling in a resource constrained environment, or if you really want to get down, to the something you've probably heard before is the juice worth the squeeze, right? So, but this term value density, I didn't come up with it. On my last video, we had a viewer, Drew C, that had mentioned the term, said the term that's what he does. He's looking for value density in his sales, and for him, I think it was a lot maybe for like space and inventory, but I really latched onto that concept, and I like that phrase, value density. So, it's in my subtitle of what it means to me is, selling or reselling in a resource constrained environment. Because, let's unpack it. If we had infinite resources, if we were in this universe where reality didn't matter, right? We had infinite time, we had infinite storage space, we had, infinite speed on listing, infinite sourcing, it wouldn't matter. We could make 1 penny we could make a fraction of a cent off a book, and we would just send millions of them in and make tens of thousands of dollars. It'd be easy, right? But the reality is that we all are faced with some kind of resource constraint. It a lot of times for small resellers, it is space and it's inventory control. Sometimes it's money for to build inventory. But most often it becomes time. And so in those resource constrained environments, how can we look at how we're doing our business and make sure that we're maintaining, what we'll call value density to get the most, profit for the effort, or making sure that the juice is worth the squeeze. So, for me, I think that part of this is driven by the fact that I think reselling's changed over the years. There's more competition, more resellers. Fees have gone up. Sometimes just the overhead of doing things, even shipping, all that has taken bigger and bigger bites out of the reselling picture. So anymore, it does boil down for your situation. What is, when we say value density, how do you maximize profit for what it's worth for you on these other cost factors, right? Everything has a cost function, whether it's the money you put into it or the time you put into it, the effort, there's a cost function there. So I think that's a good question for everybody that's watching. I'd be really interested in what your response is how much profit on a book or on an item is generally worth your time? And I know your situation changes that. If you're just doing it as a hobby, it's one thing. If you're doing it where you're making monthly bills, having to make monthly bills and payments, every $5 counts. But for me, I was always kind of like, hey, if I have $1 in a book, I want to at least make $10. That said, my average sales price on Amazon and eBay was like, it's been around $18 a book. Amazon more like $28. And so I would, average sales price, $18 to $28, which was making my profit definitely greater than $10 a book. And you can do some math on that. You can think, if I sell 10 items, if I sell 9 of these for $10 and I sell one of them for $110, then my average sales price is $20. And then if I'm doing a 50-50 cost share with my selling platform, which is probably accurate for Amazon, eBay is probably a little less than that, maybe more like 35 or 40%, then you're making at least $10 a book. So, or whatever your item is. This discussion on value density is not just for books, it's for anything you might resell. But, for you, what is the amount of profit that an item can make that makes it worth your while? In the past, I've always been, obviously we want to buy the most profitable items we can. And if we see something that's high profit, we're going to buy it. But in the past, I would have things where, hey, if there's a book that I can make $4 or $5 off of, and it's just sitting there and I can throw a label on it and send it into Amazon, I'm going to do it. Part of that is how fast it sells. It's not a long sitter. That's one thing that's changed over the years, with inventory controls on the Fulfilled by Amazon front, where you just can't let it sit there forever anymore. If you're doing merchant fulfilled and eBay, where you're servicing things yourself, you're just limited by how much space, like the bookshelves behind me, right? So there's all these things that feed in, and there's no silver bullet. It's going to be what, in particular, your circumstance drives. But ultimately, for the effort, the time, the energy, the cost, everything that gets into the equation of selling something, what's your value density? What's your profit that you need on that item to make it worth your while? And it's an interesting concept. The other thing that's what feeds into that, and again, it depends on your situation, but you have to think, if I just concentrate on high value density, high profit, how much is it going to move my needle on my profit side versus the effort? And that's, for me, is kind of where I'm at, kind of in book selling. I'm leaving more of the lower profit stuff. Now, if I still see something really cool, I'm going to get it and I'll sell it, because that's just being part of the curator of the lost. If you see something super cool, you got to get it. But the issue of, hey, maybe some of these that are not quite as high a profit, I'm just leaving them, and I'm trying to concentrate on the higher value density, higher profit items. Part of that's just for me, the time I have to put into it, my death pile that I can continuously work on, just peace of mind, and just not having just stuff just junked everywhere. I'm trying to be a little more disciplined. And it's funny, on the corollary to that is on the sourcing side, I was talking to some friends that volunteer at a library, and they said they had been trying for about the past year to go through and they're really checking all the books and trying to find the diamonds in the wild so that they can price them a little higher. Their prices are really good. They're between 50 cents and $3 or $4. But they said they had looked at their books this last year, and they're spending so much time as volunteers trying to, hey, if this is a higher value book, we can price it for $10 or $15 or whatever and make more. And they're like, we looked at the numbers though, and the donations coming in and the book sales are numbers are staying pretty flat, and our profit for the bookstore is kind of flat. And they're like, for all this time, we're just getting burned out and we're not moving the needle. And so it was kind of a realization to them when they looked at their numbers. So again, it's going to be situation dependent, but I think just, I know this is a lot of rambling. I don't have a silver bullet, but it's something just to be thinking about for your situation. What is your value density? What is your profit that you really need to make it worth your while? And I'd be interested in knowing those numbers. So put on comments and let us know. Hey, the other thing I just want to, in closing here, that I want to say, I had the subtitle on this of selling in a resource-constrained environment, because I love subtitles on books. And, one of my favorite subtitles is, in the sci-fi realm, Philip K. Dick, he did this book called Dr. Blood Money. And then in parentheses underneath it said, or How We Learned to Get Along After the Bomb. So I love that subtitle. And then I think about other ones, there's probably in regular popular literature, Frankenstein, the subject's, it's, or modern Prometheus, right? And then you have some other examples. There's Peter Pan is like the boy who wouldn't grow up. And then I don't know if you've ever read Cormac McCarthy, but Blood Meridian it's like the evening redness in the West. It's just like a really cool title, So anyway, I dig that. Just a little side bit of information, interest. But that's it. Think about it. If you haven't thought about it, if you're getting stressed out on things and you kind of do your thing, but think about your value density that you need, your profit, resource constraints, and how, hey, could I change this a little bit and just really cut back on some of the chaff and really stay, and make my life better on this. So it's a thought. Thanks again for Drew C. for the kind of getting the wheels spinning on this concept. And for me, what kicked it off was the video that I did last on the board games, the Shadows of Brimstone RPG stuff, Kickstarter stuff, and whether I had made a $200 mistake. And that video's out there if you haven't seen it. But I cherry picked like 4 or 5 items out of that I found that are about $50 a piece. And so if I sell those in the box sets, I'll make all my money back and some profit on those like 5 or 6 items, and then I'll have a ton of other stuff to sell. So it'll be interesting to see what my final value density is on that item. But that's kind of was in the same timing. It was the comments on that item, those buys in an estate sale, that got me thinking about this subject for bigger stuff. So anyway, I look forward to your comments. Look forward to what's your limit, what's kind of your threshold for stuff. And me again personally, I'm trying to do kind of focus on higher profit, higher value density on the items I'm getting. So anyway, see cool, buy cool, list it so you can sell it. Hope everybody's doing good, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.